Okay, and I think now is time in this class to talk about the technical aspects of web design development, which is the web coding part. Okay, when we're talking about creating websites, we're talking about using many types of coding languages. And you can say that a website is like the human body. You know, the human body has a lot of different parts, and each part helps basically make the human body do what it does, move around and be alive basically. So like that, these coding languages help the website come alive online. So continuing with this human body analogy, we're going to talk about the first coding language used. It's called HTML. And HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Languages, and I consider this to be the skeleton of the website. This is where everything begins when creating websites. This is where you have your images, your text, your links, your lists, every single bit of content you see on a website, that comes from HTML. So, to show an example of what I'm talking about, let's get out of a slideshow for a second. Okay, here we have your typical website, right? Yahoo.com. And it looks pretty good, right? You can find everything, lots of pictures and text, links to show different news sources. So now I'm going to do something. I'm going to go here and I'm going to disable the styles of this site. And I'll explain to you what styles is later. So now I'm going to turn it off. Okay, now here is what the website looks like in pure HTML format. See, everything is gone, all the colors and whatnot, and all you have left are lists of links and text and ugly looking buttons and images with borders surrounding them. Basically a pretty ugly site. And to top it all off, everything has been shifted to the left side. This is what web pages and websites look like when it's just HTML code. Now, if you would prefer something more pleasing to the eye, you would have to use this next type of code called CSS. And CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet. I consider this the flesh of the website. This is where you communicate to the web browser what your website looks like online. So any decisions you make visually for your website, this is the language you use to dictate that. So now, to continue with this example, I'm going to turn back on the style sheets. And here we go. Now it looks like what it used to before I turned it off. Now you can see the layout has changed. Everything on the left side has now been positioned in other different places, a little bit more organized. There's color to the site too, in terms of what the links look like. You see when you roll over, you see the underline pop up. All of this stuff that I just did is in CSS. Okay, the third type of code language used is called ActionScript. ActionScript is pretty special because you have to pretty much use a software program called Adobe Flash to type out the code. And this code creates dynamic content and features for your website. So I consider it to be the muscles of the website. It basically helps the website move, it brings animation to it, and you need to have an Adobe Flash player in order to see your Flash features at work. So, showing an example of that, I'm going to go to a website. This is Hermes.com, the luxury brand Hermes, and they use Flash to create a lot of their dynamic content. So this is what ActionScript can do for a website. It can create animation, it can create interactive games with it, and you can even create audio and video streaming for websites. So many companies love to use Flash to create entire websites, but web designers are not too fond of using ActionScript for everything because it takes a while for it to load. And of course, like I said before, you need a special player download onto your computer in order to see any of this good Flash stuff. So in a way, Flash as a total website builder is not practical. But it does make for great dynamic content, as you can see. It looks really good getting to this point, didn't it? Right? So ActionScript is great when used sparingly. Let's just put it that way. JavaScript is similar to ActionScript, so I consider it as the heart and lungs of the website. It brings life to a website, but unlike ActionScript, it doesn't need to be in a special software system in order to type it out, and you don't need a special software in order to see it, any of its dynamic content on screen. So normally most web developers will like to use JavaScript more often than say Flash for different types of features. It's usually most popularly used for navigation purposes. So as we can just show on the Yahoo website, and I roll my mouse over these links here, and you see a quick view. This kind of stuff is usually made using JavaScript. And last but not least, we have PHP. PHP stands for PHP Hypertext Preprocessor. And this is a pretty special coding language that we're using here. This is the nervous system of a website. Now, you don't necessarily have to use PHP to build a great website. However, PHP brings a more, I guess you could say, intelligence to the website itself. It basically can create commands that are interpreted by a web server to make things happen. And to get a better idea of what PHP actually is, it's usually used to make blogs. So when you go and create your own blog, say using Blogger, or the more popular WordPress, and when you see yourself, writing blog posts every day and adding images and removing blog posts from there, all of that stuff, that's basically possible because of PHP. PHP makes it possible for a website to update and manage its own content frequently, unlike a regular HTML, CSS produced website, which is more static and more manually updated than, say, a website used by PHP. So that's a general background of what web designers use to create websites. But for this course, we're only going to focus on HTML and CSS, since they are basically the building blocks of the website. Once you understand HTML and CSS, you'll be able to tackle ActionScript and JavaScript and PHP and create the most awesome websites out there. However, that stuff is just icing on the cake. Like I said, if you understand HTML and CSS, you'll be able to create wonderful websites on their own. So the rest of those coding languages are icing on the cake, so to speak. So on that note, we are going to begin our lesson in HTML.